Hey everybody, Monday afternoon, beautiful day outside. I'm just taking a few minutes before I get ready to lead Celebrate Recovery here. But I was looking at some news feeds and just looking at what's going on in the world of prison reform and drug and alcohol programs. And as I read, it's just like I'm not reading anything new, anything innovative. I'm reading the same bad recipe. You know, when you make chocolate chip cookies, if you leave something out, that cookie's not going to taste so good. And it's the same thing with prison reform. You can't just put in most of the ingredients or half of the ingredients. Like, you got to have all of the components that bring about reform, or the money that you spend for a partial approach it's just going to fail. And you know, it just seems that people just don't understand this. So they get all excited about the fact that, you know, they're instituting these drug and alcohol programs inside the prison, or they're teaching men and women trade skills and life skills, you know, computer skills. But they're not addressing some of the things that need to be addressed. And number one, and they're not looking at, you know, some of the things they need to be looking at in the form of statistics and success and failure rates of different things. I mean, if you look at anything in recovery, and I'm not saying that 6 months, like if you're in prison and there's a program that, you know, is that you can go to and participate for 6 months, that you shouldn't go. I'm not saying that. I'm saying I would encourage everyone to go to that program. But I'm just saying statistics show that short-term programs don't bring about the results that people would expect. And, you know, it has to do with science, it has to do with biology and the chemical makeup of the body, and it has to do with unaddressed trauma, things that have happened in people's lives. And it isn't every single person, but more often than not, and Mike DeLeon, if you're out there, you can confirm this for me, but more often than not, when I'm in prisons and I'm talking to people in drug rehabs or prisons, 100% of the time, they're talking to me about trauma in their life. The conversational stuff, oh, well, I grew up in a good home and this and that, but their normal is just that. It's their normal. They have nothing to compare it to. And when you start digging and you start, you know, talking about their life, you say, and you think that's normal? You think that experience in your life is normal? And they sit there and you can see the wheels turning and they go, no, I guess it isn't normal. And it's not about blaming anybody or anything, but it's about just understanding that alcoholism or drug addiction, or it could be gambling or sex addiction, it could be anything. Those are just, you know, those aren't the roots of the problems. Those are the symptoms of the problem. And if you want the symptoms to go away, then you got to get the root out. It's just that simple. And so my point being that while these programs are good to have, they're not good in the sense that they're not complete. And in that respect, they're not going to accomplish what they set out to do. And I just don't know what the answer is, but I'm going to keep pushing. I'm going to keep advocating for programs that are long-term, that include faith-based approaches. And you know what? I'm not telling anybody who doesn't want to participate in a faith-based program that they have to. I'm just saying to you that you take a program like Teen Challenge nationwide, of the people who complete that program, 70% never go back to addiction. They never go back to a life of addiction. When you look at the U.S. government and their programs and what they accomplish, of the people who complete their programs, it's well under 10%. So, you know, I've been told that people are offended by faith, and I said, you know what I'm offended by? I'm offended by watching people die of drug overdoses. I'm offended by seeing people come out of prison back to the streets and committing more crimes, committing murder, dying, killing somebody. That's what I'm offended by. And I'm just taken back that somebody would say that before we go to a faith-based program, before we use an approach that, presents myself in a different relationship to God, like, like I understand who I am in relationship to God, that before we do that, we'll let our sons and daughters die. We'll let our mothers and fathers, die or go to prison. I just don't get that mentality. And so I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to be on a mission to get in front of America and just explain to them the failure, the utter failure of the prison system and these 30-day, 60-day, 90-day drug programs. The failure is miserable, and we've dumped hundreds of billions of dollars into them. And I'm just saying that if you took that 6-month program and you turned it into a year, and you use some of the approaches that are out there that have proven successful, even though they're faith-based, you're going to have a much higher success rate with people living a life free from addiction and a life free from crime. This is a matter of the heart in a lot of instances, committing crime and drug addiction. I'm not saying every instance, but in Matthew chapter 6, it's 21 to 31, it says, where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. And that's proven true in my life. When my treasure was drugs, that's where my heart was. And when my treasure was committing crime and living that lifestyle, that's where my heart was. And today, because of special people in my life who presented the gospel message to me, who presented a different perspective or worldview than I once held, because of them, my treasure has changed. And that's where my heart is today. And so if we really want genuine and long-lasting change, we're going to have to deal with the issues of the heart, because that's where a lot of these issues flow from, the issues of addiction and the issues of committing crime and some of the things that are going on in our culture and our society. I'm not preaching to anyone. What I am saying in a nutshell is this: faith-based approaches work. And why are we saying we can't do that? We'd rather let our sons and daughters die, our mothers and fathers die, or go to prison. Why? I just don't understand how somebody could be so offended by what's proven over a pretty significant time now to work. I don't understand that. And so I'm going to be making it my mission moving forward to find myself a way to the right people who can give me the right platforms to start really targeting the American citizens and, putting before them statistics of the failure of our criminal justice system and what that means in terms of their tax dollars and what the money that, the government's taking from you and how they're spending it and how it's failing, when all the while you have approaches out there. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. There's approaches out there that work. Are they foolproof? Of course not. 70% isn't foolproof. That means 30% of the people are going to fail. But 70% are going to succeed versus the 4 or 5% now. I've given you the statistics on incarceration. 85%. They reoffend when they come home, or, they violate their parole and they wind up back in prison. And of the 10% who or 15% who don't go back to prison, 10% of those people die. And the statistics are staggering as it relates to the failure of our criminal justice system, whether it has to do with bail, whether it has to do with incarceration and serving that custodial time, or whether it has to do with coming home with parole. But I'm telling you, America is spending your trillions of dollars on failure. Are you okay with that? I'm not. So that's going to be my mission, and stay tuned. You're going to be seeing a lot of me. All right. God bless you all. Have a good night.